Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Classic Comics. So, the other shoe has finally fallen, and heads are starting to roll at Disney in a big way. This isn't entirely a surprise. Bob Chapek was planning extensive layoffs to help save money before he was fired near the end of last year and replaced by returning CEO Bob Iger. Shortly after returning, Iger made it clear that the layoffs would still be happening. But I don't think anyone expected that one of the victims of the purge would be Victoria Alonso, longtime executive producer at Marvel Studios and Kevin Feige's right hand woman. So it was a bit of a shock when the news came down on March 20th that Victoria Alonso was gone from Marvel Studios. Bit more to the point, it was the manner in which it happened. Alonso left Marvel Studios without any sort of press release, and Marvel and Disney said nothing other than that she was no longer employed. This is a bit odd for Hollywood. When big wigs depart from a position, there's usually a lot of fluffing by coworkers and employers about how great the person is to work with, etc., etc. None of that here, though. It wasn't made clear if Alonso quit or was fired at the time. But now things are starting to become a little bit clearer as some folks at Marvel and Disney are starting to talk about why Alonso is no longer working there. Variety posted this column online the other day, which delves into the reasons behind Alonso's dismissal. Let's just take a look at this, shall we? So, at this year's Academy Awards, Victoria Alonso was overwhelmed. The veteran Marvel Studios executive and producer of the nominated film Argentina 1985, I've never heard of it, was stopped on the red carpet posing for photographers assigned to capture top executives on Hollywood's big night, but something shocked her. Look at this, two women, Alonzo said of the female photographers hired for the gig. Alonzo insisted the pair put down their cameras and pose for a photo with her in front of a giant Oscar statuette. As they all smiled, she told them, "We've worked so hard to get here and we're not going anywhere." 8 days later, she was fired. Sad trombone. She was fired as Marvel's president of physical production, post production, VFX, and animation. Three individuals familiar with the matter told Variety. The shakeup came as a surprise to many in show business and within the vast Marvel comic book fandom. Alonso's dismissal has raised numerous questions about behind the scenes workings at the prized content engine, and with them, another unfavorable news cycle as Disney CEO Bob Iger attempts to stabilize its parent company amid economic unrest. While the cause of Alonso's termination is unclear, the sources said the decision was made by a consortium including human resources, Disney's legal department, and multiple executives, including Disney Entertainment co chair Alan Bergman, to whom all of Marvel Studios reports. Alonso's longtime boss and Marvel Chief Creative Officer Kevin Feige felt mired in an impossible situation and ultimately did not intervene, one source added. Alonso was blindsided, another insider added. So, what this tells me basically is no one person wanted to take responsibility for firing her. So, they're basically letting you know this was a group decision. No one person made the decision. And them saying that Feige felt mired in an impossible situation kind of makes me think that he was basically in a situation where it was basically, look, it's either her or you. And he decided, yeah, you can go ahead and fire her. A representative for Alonzo declined to provide comment for the story. Marvel Studios had no comment. Alonzo joined Marvel Studios in 2006, 3 years before Disney acquired the label for $4 billion. Over 17 years, she has been a fixture under Chief Creative Officer Kevin Feige, standing beside Kevin Feige's right hand and co president Louis Disposito. Simultaneously, she worked to become a brand on her own, a rare openly LGBTQ person and woman of color in a visible leadership role, known for her fiery passion and outspokenness over diversity and inclusion in Marvel storytelling. She has been honored by media watchdogs and visual effects communities alike, and is about to publish a memoir about her corporate ascent, the aptly titled Possibility is Your Superpower. Where then in all of the multiverse did this dramatic fracture occur? Numerous sources familiar with Marvel pointed to the tremendous pressure that the unit has been under over the last few years. to deliver compelling content, not just to theaters, but also in the form of new streaming shows intended to bolster Disney Plus. In 2021 and 2022, Marvel unloaded an unprecedented torrent of comic book adventures, releasing 17 titles, 7 movies, 8 streaming series, and 2 TV specials over 23 months. That breakneck distribution schedule, a product of the pandemic and the need to constantly feed Disney Plus, was not of Alonso's making. Marvel was far from the only studio tasked with delivering feature level content for a newly launched streaming service. But it was Alonso's job to get each of those titles through Marvel's gargantuan post production process. By the summer of 2022, cracks began to show in the company's seemingly impervious armor. Starting on Reddit, followed by a series of stories published across the internet, visual effects artists began to loudly complain about Marvel's demanding post production schedules. Complaints ranged from unrelenting overtime to chronic understaffing to the inability to avoid delivering substandard work due to constantly changing deadlines. Some singled out Alonzo as a kingmaker who would blacklist artists who have pissed her off in any way. One visual effects artist recently told Variety that the biggest issue for them was Marvel's inability to provide clear guidelines. The show I was on really struggled because it was an established character whose powers they were reconceiving for the MCU, the artist said on the condition of anonymity. Most complaints, they said, came down to one refrain: Marvel doesn't know how to figure S out beforehand. And in this case, I'm guessing they're talking about Ms. Marvel because they did redo Marvel's powers for her streaming show. A different senior VFX artist threw cold water on the idea that Alonzo would single out individual artists. The idea of a very senior exec terrifying rank and file artists, per some reports, feels a bit off, they told Variety. Above the line, 3 different up and coming Marvel actors agreed that Alonzo was only a supportive force on set. She was the epitome of professional and knows her stuff, said one former Disney film executive. Still, the drumbeat that something is rotten in the state of Marvel Studios only grew louder with the release of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, a film that finished shooting over a year before it was due in theaters and still weathered repeated criticism for generic visual effects that looked like CGI glop and were very flat and cruddy looking. Even more critical, the movie has grossed $463 million globally to date, the worst performance of the Ant-Man franchise, and a figure that means it will struggle to break even in its theatrical window. That's the wrong trajectory for a studio that Disney has come to rely upon as an unshakable box office cash machine, especially as Iger makes plain that he's cutting costs across the company. Insiders say the 5 Disney Plus series from Marvel Studios that had been scheduled to debut in 2023 have been narrowed to 3 or 4, with the others moving into 2024 and possibly beyond. And I actually talked about this in my live stream last Saturday. I'll leave a link to that if you want to check that out. That will take some of the immediate pressure off of Marvel's post-production pipeline. Alonso's absence is not expected to affect the next Marvel title, May's Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Alonso's replacement was not immediately announced by Disney. Given her expansive portfolio of duties, it may take more than one person to fill her shoes. So Alonso is gone, but what does that mean in terms of the MCU's direction going forward? Well, we already know that the amount of content is going to drop in favor of improving quality, whatever that means. So does this mean less wokeness in Disney films and shows? I doubt it, certainly not in the near term. But if MCU films continue to struggle and streaming shows continue to fail to grow the subscriber base, well, maybe. As an uninformed observer, I have to think that this is connected not only to the poor performance of recent MCU films and shows, but also to the furor over Florida's Parental Rights and Education Act, aka the Don't Say Gay bill. Now, when the bill first made headlines and some of its employees were urging Disney to take a stand on the subject, then CEO Bob Chapek tried to avoid getting Disney involved. But then at the GLAAD Media Awards in April of last year, Alonzo admonished Chapek to speak out, urging him to do better, Bob. Facing a lot of media scrutiny and with some of his employees in seemingly open rebellion, no doubt emboldened by Alonzo's criticism, Chapek eventually relented and made a statement in which he apologized for being silent and condemned the bill. The Florida legislature, not pleased with Disney's CEO taking shots at them, passed a bill that would strip Disney of its favored status under Florida law, that exempted it from a variety of state taxes and regulations, as well as allowing it to operate the Reedy Creek Improvement District, that's the area around Disney World, virtually autonomously, without needing to pay any of the usual taxes or go through any of the usual state offices when they want to make changes, such as building a road or tearing down a building, etc. Now, that loss of the tax exempt status alone is going to cost Disney untold millions, not to mention that weighing in on a controversial political topic has alienated a significant portion of Disney's audience and may continue to hurt Disney financially for decades to come. Something that might not have happened if Disney had stayed out of the matter as Chapek had wanted, but he felt compelled to do so anyway after Alonso publicly scolded him. Now, I can't draw any straight line between this and Disney's decline at the box office, but it's hard to believe the two aren't related. Not to mention that Disney's parks are having a bit of a difficult time as well. That Star Wars Galactic Star Cruiser attraction has become notorious for struggling to bring in customers, not to mention that Galaxy's Edge isn't doing all that great either. And with all the financial losses Disney has suffered because of its involvement in political matters due to the urging of Alonzo and other far left activists in the company, and the failure of Disney streaming shows to grow the brand, and the declining performance of Marvel films at the box office, with Ant-Man on the verge of being an outright flop, it seems likely that Iger has seized on Ant-Man's failure to get rid of Alonzo. This is something of a surprise, as Alonzo, being a woman and gay and Hispanic, ticks plenty of diversity boxes, and I would have thought that that made her safe, but I guess the whole Reedy Creek mess was just too much for Disney to stomach. It's really a disaster for the company that's going to affect how Disney operates going forward, and they have Alonzo to thank for that in large part. I think that's probably what really did her in more than anything. That and the failure of MCU's Phase 4 shows to connect with the audience. I guess using shows like WandaVision, Hawkeye, and Loki and Moon Knight as backdoor pilots for female characters to get spun off into their own shows isn't working out so well. Not to mention train wrecks like She Hulk. Now, does this mean there's going to be more fidelity to the source material in the MCU and less MCU? We'll have to wait and see, but I'll believe it when I see it. And what does this mean for other Disney studios? I'm thinking mainly of Lucasfilm, as there are more than a few folks at that studio that many fans wouldn't mind seeing dismissed as well. We'll just have to wait and see on that, I guess. Let me know what you think of Alonso's firing in the comments. Am I right that the political controversy and Disney's loss of control of Reedy Creek, as well as subsequent financial losses, is what did her in? Or was it the declining box office returns of the MCU, or the decline of Disney Plus, or something else that I've overlooked? And before you leave, please do like this video and sub to the channel and hit the bell for notifications, and I will see you all next time. Thanks for watching.